Some of these leadership theories and models and ideas were great sounding, and when I tried to apply them, well, I learned that it didn't always work quite the way the textbook said it would work.
Move over, baby boomers. It's time for Gen XYZ. It's time to stop waiting on the world to change. It's time to be the change. It's time to stop thinking about how your life can be better. It's time to start taking action, massive action to improve your life. Join Zach Winter and Mark Adair Rios every week as we learn how others had the grit, determination, and conviction to 10x their lives, and as we explore ways that can help you 10x your life.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the 10X for Gen XYZ podcast. I'm Zach Winter.
And I'm Mark Adair Rios.
And today, as our guest, we're very happy to have Paul Thornton. For the past 40 years, Paul has been both a student and a teacher of management and leadership concepts. His mission is to help parents, teachers, coaches, and team leaders become more efficient managers and leaders. He's written over 100 articles and 18 books, including his newest book, which just hit Amazon today, and we're excited to learn a little bit more about that. And he conducts college classes, seminars, and he's an executive coach. Paul, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate that. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into focusing on helping people with management and leadership skills and concepts.
Okay. I was playing hockey in high school, and the team that I was on was kind of always in the middle of the league. You know, we were never the top one or two teams. We were kind of in the middle. And we had some really good players, and it got me wondering, why is it our team one or two? And I concluded it had a lot to do with the coaches. So that was kind of my first interest in what are the top coaches doing that my coach wasn't doing, and that kind of sparked my interest in how does a great coach bring out the best in people? How do they find their hidden talents, et cetera, et cetera? So then I went off to college. I played hockey in college as well, but I had a great course with Paul Hersey, and he further stimulated my interest in management and leadership. So that
is somebody that's well known in the management.
Yeah, he's very well known. He and Ken Blanchard wrote a very successful book, and it had to do with leadership styles. And he was a great teacher, and he just motivated me tremendously. He was really the best college teacher I had. And when I started teaching in college, I tried to model what he had done. So, I tried to practice some of his techniques. So anyway, that got me interested in the field, and I, read everything I could on it, talked to people, took classes on it. And then I got a job. My first job was coaching and teaching at a college. And being a college coach, I was 27 years old. And I was coaching a college team, and many of the players were 22, 24, some of them were even 25, 26. So some were my age, So it got me to realize theories and models and concepts are one thing, but actually applying it, in the real world is something else. So some of these leadership theories and models and ideas were great sounding, and when I tried to apply them, well, I learned that it didn't always work quite the way the textbook said it would work. So anyway, that got me, I kept being interested in what do the top coaches do, and then what do the top leaders do, and that's been really my pursuit for the last 40 years. I've tried to learn as a student, and I've tried to be a teacher and teach concepts and principles that will help people, be great leaders and managers.
That's interesting. You brought up something really, really interesting, because that dynamic that you see where a younger person may have, oversight over reports that are older than them, especially in the military, which I wasn't in the military, but I was in ROTC, and in college, my early years of college.
Mhm.
And there was the possibility that when I graduated at 21 or 22, having gone through my, college military training, I would have oversight over some non-coms that were way older than me.
Mhm.
And finding ways to, how do you, you have to really work fast as a young person. Obviously, they have to defer to your rank, but they don't really, instantly, they don't really. And they can really, mess you up a little bit if you don't get respect.
Yeah.
Well, what are some of the techniques that you employ, Paul, to establish yourself as a leader?
Well, like a lot of new leaders, I made a lot of mistakes. I did things that I, in retrospect, probably shouldn't have done. But I also was very much, I again tried to be a student and be curious and learn from my players. And, I kept thinking, what do I need to do differently to get them engaged and bought into the systems that we were using and the approaches we were using. So I think once they saw I was fully committed to the approach and plan we were using, and I was supporting them. My goal also in all of the jobs I've had, I've tried to convey to the people, I'm trying to help you be better.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you succeed.
Yes.
As a teacher, I would also tell students, I want you to be successful, and I'm here to help you. I'm not working against you. I'm not trying to do anything to, discourage you. I want to help you be the best that you can be.
Yes.
So with that approach kind of, I don't know, got them to believe in me, I guess, and believe that I had their back. And then, of course, you got to practice what you preach. You got to support them and encourage them and spend time with them one-on-one and gain their respect slowly. But a person who's got 20 plus years experience more than you have, they think they know more than you, which they probably do. But if you can convince them that you really want to help them grow and develop and succeed even more, they buy in.
Plus, there's a perspective thing too, right? Like I come out of the theater where a lot of times, there are younger people directing the action. And the one key component that always kind of comes into play if a smart director is losing kind of track of his performers and, the thing is, hey, I'm sitting out here on the outside. I see the whole chessboard, right? And that's my job. I'm here to support you, but I see how everything's fitting from this other perspective.
Yeah.
And I would imagine on where what you're doing is the same exact thing, right?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the coach, the leader, the teacher needs to see the big picture. They need to be mindful of how everything connects and should be aligned. It's not always, but those things are really important. And sometimes the more experienced senior person is just looking at a small slice of the operation and, maybe not looking at the whole ball of wax. And I think that's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very interesting. Do you have advice or techniques in how to deal with situations where you have a team member that's more focused on their personal goals or ambitions, but it could be in conflict and creating friction with other team members, not consistent with the broader goal?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that exists on lots of teams. And I think part of a good coach leader is getting everyone to buy into the team goals, and that's a work in progress. It's you have to really do a lot of discussion sometimes with some players and some students and people on your team, but getting them to realize the team goals need to be more important than their individual goals. It's fine they have individual goals, and that's good, and they can work on those, but the team goals need to be, paramount, and they need to be the overall driving force for the whole team.
This comes up a lot. That comes up a lot when you're thinking about professional sports teams and the entertainment factor where, you know, in order to survive, these teams have to have one or two superstars.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, you know, maybe I don't know much about sports because there's probably another philosophy out there, but really the way things are going now, you can see the focus is on get us a couple of, you know, Kobe's or get us a couple of, you know, Shaqs, and then support them with other players that might be pretty good, but might not be as good, you know, because they're less money, you know?
Yep.
And that probably comes up a lot, you know, in those situations.
Yeah, I think one of the books I wrote has to do with alignment. And I think alignment is a really important topic. And all of the pieces in the organization need to be aligned with the strategy and the strategic goals you try to accomplish. And, you know, if you have two superstars on the team that aren't getting along and their roles are in conflict and it's not working out, you know, that creates a whole bunch of problems.
Yeah.
If you have other people who have a lesser role, but an important role, and they don't accept their role, again, that creates problems.
Yep.
So getting everybody, all of the pieces aligned and supporting the strategy is something that's really important that senior leaders, I think, need to do. And some do it well and some not so well. You know, it's a mixed bag.
So do you think, I mean, we'll probably get into it a little bit later, but do you think all of this can be taught, or like, do you feel like true leadership can be taught at almost as a technical kind of, you know, directive, or is there a whole, you know, whole component that really comes as a natural kind of either charismatic thing or a propensity towards, you know, getting out in front of people, or what do you think about that?
I think you can teach it. I think people's personalities also play into it. I think some people just have more natural ability that they connect with people better. And that's just a, you know, God-given talent or gift that they have. But I think you certainly can learn techniques to, you know, be a good listener, be a good communicator, learn how to facilitate discussions, problem solve, engage people, get them involved. You know, so there's a lot of things you can learn. As we were saying earlier, the concepts and models sound good in the textbook, but when you apply them, it's, you know, it's not always as easy as it sounds. So I think part of being a leader is being open. You know, you have to be open to coaching and open to feedback and opening to doing some self-reflection on what's working, what isn't, what do I need to change, what do I need to do differently, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
You guys have probably found this with doing podcasts that, you know, your first podcast isn't as good as your, you know, the last one you did.
Right.
Each one you got a little bit better at, and you reflect and think, gee, I could have done this differently, or I should have probed this more, or, you know, whatever. So it's, I think leadership, like most things, can be learned, but you have to be open, you have to be coachable, you have to be curious, you have to spend time in reflecting on what you're doing or not doing, and, you know, and doing all that, I think, helps you improve.
Interesting.
There also seems to be like a distinction between like learning the nuts and bolts of leadership, like how to be an effective communicator, how to be an effective presenter, and the other aspect of inspiring people, of creating a common vision and getting everybody on board from kind of a more emotional level. Yeah, that's latter seems to be something that's probably more difficult to learn or to teach.
Yeah. I think that's very true. Finding or developing the ability to find that thing inside people that makes them go to the next level is an art, I guess. You know, there's the science to it and there's the art to it. But learning the little subtleties of doing things a little bit differently with different people. You know, the team I coached, they had 25 players on the team, and each person had a different personality and different goals and needs and reacted to feedback differently. And, so there's a lot of little nuances you got to, think about when you're dealing with each person to be most impactful and most effective,
Right.
And that's kind of the art. The book tells you treat everyone this way and give feedback this way. Okay, that's good, but there's a lot more to it than that,
Yeah.
And well, anyway, that's I think that is important.
That's why I think that sports are also important in terms of just development of young people and the possibilities that are there. Not every sport is going to, kind of lend itself towards leadership, but also with smart parents and aware parents who are trying to help their kids develop some of those things. They may not have, a star quarterback, or I know some parents that are really invested in their children for the glory of it all, but there's also a component where it's possible for them to learn, being a really good team member, but also hopefully a leader within the context of a team, to help everybody move forward. And smart parents know how to, along with the coaches, help push that along too. And, I think, sports are good for that.
I couldn't agree more, Mark. I think sports is a great training arena for kids. My grandson is playing first year. He's a freshman. He's playing on the varsity hockey team. And just to highlight some of the things he's learning, setting goals, being open to feedback from the coaches. Every morning they practice from 6 to 7. So he's got to get up at 4:30 in the morning, have a little breakfast, and then get to practice, And I keep thinking just the discipline of doing that, and what is that teaching him in terms of what you got to do sometimes to achieve your goal, And he's made every practice, and he's gotten up every day on time and what have you. But there's so many life lessons, working with your teammates, being supportive of them, encouraging them,
Yeah.
I think there's a huge amount. I know myself personally, I learned as much playing sports as I did in the classroom, even with some great teachers that I had. But the playing the sports really taught me an awful lot. And
That's great.
Fortunately, all of our grandchildren, we have 5 grandsons, they're all into sports and they're all learning a lot. And like you say, Mark, they're not, none of them are the superstar of the team, and that's okay. Just you're on the team, you have a role on the team, you're learning life skills, getting along with people, et cetera, et cetera. It's really, really, really important.
Yeah. And sometimes like on football teams, right? Sometimes the team captains, the leaders, the ones that people look up to, a lot of times they're like the defensive end, and they may be most senior in a lot of ways or have the most experience, but they are, they're the ones that are getting crushed, but they're still able to whip up, and use their leadership skills to get everybody kind of going in the same direction. It's not always the quarterback.
I agree.
And it's not always, although the quarterback has to be a leader in order to direct the play, but, so yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit, Paul, about what you do when you're giving seminars or executive coaching in leadership and management.
Well, one of the major big ideas that I've tried to teach over the years is my idea about leadership styles. I think there are basically just 3 styles that leaders use all the time: directing, discussing, and delegating. And when you direct people, you're telling them what to do, how to do it, when to have it done by. And when you use that style, people are learning to listen, follow directions, ask questions if they don't understand. So there are certain times when people need direction. Direction is not bad, you know?
Yeah.
So explaining them clearly and precisely and succinctly what they need to do is important. So that's one side, directing. Second one, discussing. Your ability to ask the right questions, to engage people, to get their thoughts and ideas and opinions, to get their input into setting goals, making decisions, things like that. And when you use that style, people are learning to think. You know, you're having them think about, what do you think the goal should be? What do you think the problem is? What do you think we should do? So they learn to think, they learn to present their ideas, they learn to defend their ideas because they'll be challenged. So that's an important style. And then the third style is delegating. So delegating, you're empowering people to make decisions, take action, solve problems, you know. And there people are learning to be independent, to work through issues, to get help and assistance when you need it. So each style is appropriate in certain situations, and each style helps people learn certain things. It's like raising kids, really. You know, early in life, you're using more of a directing style. You're telling the child what to do, when to go to bed, when to do their homework, and what have you. And then as they get a little older, you're having more discussions. You know, what are your values? What's important? What would you do in this situation? And then hopefully, when they get even a little bit older, you've delegated to them that they're now managing their own life, right? They're making decisions, they're taking action, they're working, solving problems, etc. They're not running back to you every 5 minutes saying, you know, Mom or Dad, what should I do? You know, you figure it out. You're smart, you know? So I think each style is important. So in a lot of my seminars and workshops, I teach those 3 approaches. When I've done some executive coaching, I've talked to the person I'm working with about what style do you use in various situations and why, and how is it working? And how can you tweak or change your approach a little bit to make it more effective? Because sometimes we can be too direct or not direct enough. Other times I've seen some managers and leaders, they have their meetings and discussions are too long. You know, they just go on and on and on. They never make decisions or never get closure. Delegating, some managers delegate too much to one person and not enough to other people. So there's extremes in all of these things. So finding the sweet spot or the optimal point where you're going to make the biggest impact is really important. So that's kind of the themes of what I would talk about and discuss, as well as, you know, other stuff. But that's kind of one of the major themes I hit on.
And each leader can tap into each of these 3 different leadership styles depending on the particular circumstance.
Absolutely. I would wager that both of you, me, most people use all 3 styles every day.
Yep.
There are times during the day when you're directing, you're telling someone to do something XYZ. Other times you're asking questions, you're engaging them. Other times you're delegating.
Yeah.
So I've seen in the same meeting, you know, a good leader will use all 3 styles in a 1-hour meeting. See evidence of all 3 styles being used in that meeting, you know? So yeah, it's something I think that parents use, coaches, teachers, and that's really, a lot of this is in my new book that just came out today. And I interviewed a lot of different types of people in different roles to understand, how do you use the 3 styles, you know? So anyway.
Yeah, it feels like there's almost like a Venn diagram going on, right? And so there's overlap. Like if you're thinking of like you just talked about, somebody within that 1 hour, they may have overlap with all of those inside of there, right? So there's no real hierarchical kind of thing, except within the context of what you're saying. Like you may use it more with younger folks, like in regards to your children and things like that.
Yeah. But even with my grandkids, one of them is very street smart, very precocious, very, very bright kid. And with him, I tend to have more of a discussion style, or use more of a discussion style. With one of my other grandsons, I use more of a directing style. You need to do this and that, So even with young kids, there's some variation in their knowledge, their maturity, their street smartness. So you got to, think about what's appropriate and what you're trying to do there. So anyway.
So tell us a little bit more about the book that you've just published, Paul.
Well, I interviewed, as I said, a number of people. Like I interviewed a fire chief. I interviewed a college teacher. I interviewed an Olympic gold medal winner who played on a softball team. So I interviewed a variety of people, and I asked them about how they use the three styles in their day-to-day work, and captured a lot of great ideas. And my major thesis was that in all of these various professions, as a parent, coach, teacher, fire chief, whatever, you use these three styles. So I probed the question of when do you use the style? What do you do? How do you do it? What's worked? What hasn't worked? So I really collected a lot of the information and put it into the book. And I think it will help people gain some insights into when to use each style and what's the risks are. And as I was saying earlier, you can go too far one way or the other on any of these styles. Too much delegating to the same person is not good.
Yeah.
Under delegating to certain people is not good either. You got to figure out what's the right amount to be doing of delegating or discussing or directing.
Right.
What's the title of the book?
Its title is Leadership Styles.
Leadership Styles, and that.
Yep, Leadership Styles.
Amazon now.
So it was uploaded today, and they said it takes like 72 hours before you can purchase one, and it's inexpensive. It's like $6.99 or something like that. I think it's a good purchase, and it's got a lot of good information in it, I think, anyway.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Great.
I got a question.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of poking around here, but and I'm asking both of you, Zach as well. How do you guys feel as parents, as grandparents, about using these? Let's say using your system to maybe help intervene with young people who may be necessarily gone way far off into things like drugs and things like that, but just kind of the middle ground of getting caught up in, I don't know, getting their Cash App and trying to get their money and getting caught up in, online video games and all of this stuff that's going on right now with a subsection of young people who may, at least from the outside, me being an approaching boomer, from their perspective, I guess, that some of these things may be kind of boring to them and they're really kind of on that track. Do you think it's important to kind of help intervene and find ways in to a lot of those kids? And I'm talking about like bling and rap culture and, all of those things where they think that there's a certain type of leader out here, but that's not necessarily it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think it's very important to have discussions with your children, grandchildren about their values and what they do, how they spend their time, what's important, what are their priorities. Every night we have our grandkids down to we have a summer house down in Situate, Mass. It's on the water and it's a nice setting. And we have our grandkids down, and every night at dinner, we have a discussion on some topic. And we really discuss these things and probe their thinking and try to help them clarify their goals and values, which I think is really important. I'll just say one other thing. When I was growing up, I had 3 brothers, and my parents each week would have a board meeting on Sunday nights. Yeah.
I love it.
Sunday night board meeting was a open discussion where we would discuss family rules and chores that we had, assignments, what was going on in the family. And again, it was a good opportunity to discuss and contribute and hear what other people were thinking. But again, kids need to help. They need some help in getting clarity around their values, what's important to them, in their priorities and their goals. And you really do need to provide some framework where you can discuss these things and give them a chance to articulate what they think is important and why. And you got to challenge their thinking a little bit, you know?
That's great.
Yeah. Why do you think you need my grandson? I'll give you an example. He plays hockey, and he wanted me to buy him a new hockey stick that cost $340. And I, said, no way. I said, why do you need a stick that expensive? It's not the stick, it's what you do with the stick. And, so we had a big discussion about this, The last hockey stick I bought was like $12 way back when. So anyway, the point though is, yes, I think it's absolutely critical to have a relationship with your child or grandson where you can have these discussions and they're comfortable really saying what they think,
Right.
You don't want to have them BSing you that they're just telling you what they think you want to hear. It's got to be, relationship has to be open and real enough that they are free to express their thoughts and views, I think. What do you think, Zach?
I totally agree. So in our home, it wasn't as structured. My kids are older now, 26 and 20. So it wasn't as structured, but they went to a school that had something called town hall, where all the kids would gather, and anybody could say whatever they want, or they could do whatever they want. They could sing a song or whatever. And I thought that was very, very good, because it instilled in them the ability, it empowered in them the ability to believe that, hey, I have my own opinion, and I can get up here and I can express it.
Interesting. Did your kids actually utilize that? Did you hear stories about them actually jumping up and?
Sure.
Yeah.
They would, sometimes the kids would, say, I think we should implement this as a new rule. And sometimes it would be, they'd do a performance or whatever, but it really varied. And I think it was a very positive kind of component for that school.
That's cool. And Paul, you brought up something really interesting. This whole idea of being able to give them the space to be able to make their voice heard, and also not give you the bullshit line, right, and send you off on the wrong track thinking you're doing your job, and then you look online in their Instagram feed and they're doing all kinds of other, you know what I mean, and so, and that's really, I guess, maybe where I'm coming from, where it's like trying to kind of true up that gap, allowing them to kind of have those lives. But I love this idea of challenging them, not necessarily like, which I agree, but, because you don't need the next carbon fiber hockey stick, right? Or $300, but just in terms of, why, at least getting them to articulate, why is it important for you to have, 84 carats of gold around your neck, or things like that. Like let's talk about, let's get into
what's it mean? Yeah. What's it mean to you? Yeah. What does that symbolize?
Yeah.
A lot of these things are, symbols of something deeper. and something below the surface, I guess, that you got to kind of get an idea what's going on below the surface. Why do you need 12 gold chains to go to school with? Or why do you need a $300 hockey stick? Or
Right.
yeah,
I bet you it also gets easier as a grandparent because the pressure is up.
yeah.
Well, there's more of an open.
Well,
There's
there's also the point of explaining to my grandson, what do you think it takes to earn $300?
Oh,
Some kids think money just is, there's no end to it. It's just, whatever I want, I say I want this, and some parents get the kids, I think, way too many things and don't make the kids work for them. And I was a big believer in you got to, get a part-time job, save your money. I'll help and support you a little bit towards buying a new stick, but I'm not going to pay for the whole stick. That idea,
yeah.
that concept anyway.
Yeah. That's a good point too.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That goes back to the values, right? I actually ran into that also with some younger family members, which was that, like I have a lifestyle and it is what it is, but I paid, I worked for all of my stuff, but the end result is there. And so they see that end result, but don't necessarily see
the hard work you go through
Absolutely.
to get there. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah, just, I want a MacBook Air, it's like,
Yeah.
dude, you don't need a MacBook
Yeah.
Air.
Yeah.
I got this hand down, Intel that you get.
Yeah.
Well,
One of my students, when I was teaching at a community college, came up to me after class one day and he said that he wanted to be a millionaire. And I said, okay, that's your goal and you feel pretty strongly about it. And I said, well, how are you going to do it? How are you going to make $1 million? And he had a blank stare in his face and he said, I have no idea. I said, well, having a goal is one thing. Having a plan or an approach or what you're going to do to achieve that goal is something else. You can't have one without the other,
absolutely.
So, like I say, these $300 hockey sticks, some parents are just shelling out the dollars and buying the kid the stick. And the kids, think that money grows on trees, as they say, and has little ownership of what it takes to earn the money to buy the hockey stick. So I'm being repetitive, but anyway.
No, and that veers back into kind of the leadership thing, right? In terms of, it's okay. It's like team-wide. Let's talk about sports or just any sort of team where you guys establish goals team-wide. But executing the plan, the leader is really instrumental in helping to do that.
Yeah.
To get to those goals and keep everybody motivated all along the way and things like that.
Yep. It's like all those New Year's resolutions that people have that they're going to lose weight or exercise or, whatever it happens to be. And then implementing that plan or first having a plan and then implementing it is something else, Yeah. It takes discipline. It takes hard work. It takes focus. It takes determination. It takes working through setbacks and obstacles that occur. And there's a lot to it.
As a manager or a leader, once you establish the goals or the plans, there must be a lot of technique or oversight that you provide in terms of how to go about making sure that team or business is staying on track, monitoring the progress,
Accountability,
giving feedback, accountability, checking performance of individual team members to make sure that they're staying on track.
And I think that gets back to, Zach, that monitoring performance is really important. What we talked about before, too much monitoring becomes micromanaging. So that's not good. Too little monitoring, you're out of control. You don't know what's going on, And going back to parenting again, you got the helicopter parent who's overlooking every move the kid makes, And then you got some parents that are totally disconnected and letting the kid do whatever they want to do, and they don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So again, finding that right amount of monitoring to make sure the person or the group or team is on plan and making progress and living their values and all that is, again, critical, really critical.
So do you now okay, so what's next for you? So you got your book that you just is getting set up on Amazon. It's about to come out. And are you going on a little book tour, or are you teaching right now, or what do you got going on?
I am an avid writer. I really enjoy writing. I've actually written 20 books now. This is my 20th book. Writing helps me clarify my thinking, so that's a good thing. I write articles to help promote my books. Some of the books lead to training opportunities. A couple months ago, I was invited to go to Dubai to do a training program over there. And what happened was the CEO of the company over there read one of my books and he liked it. So he had me go over and do some seminars over there on leadership and alignment and stuff like that. So some of the books lead to other opportunities, which is nice. None of my books have made the New York Times bestseller list, but, that's not my goal either. I just write about things that I think are important and I think will help people be better managers and leaders. And that's really my goal.
Love it.
And a lot of them, actually, I give away free to people who are interested. I give them electronic copies of my books. And again, I'm hoping they'll read it, get something out of it, and will benefit from some of the points.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, how can people get in touch with you, Paul, and learn a little bit more about your management and leadership coaching?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I contribute often there, almost once a day. I have something I put up there. But my email address is pbthornton74@gmail.com, and that's probably the best way to get in touch with me. I had a website a few years ago, but I did take it down, and I'm debating whether to put it back up. But anyway, my email is probably the best way to get in touch with me.
Great.
Terrific.
Well, we're looking forward to grabbing a copy of your book. And this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for coming on, Paul. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and I really enjoyed it. And I think these are important topics, and we need more leaders and managers that know how to be effective and know how to help people, grow, develop, achieve their goals. I think that's really important. So
Absolutely.
It's an important topic. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
All right. Thank you.
10X for Gen XYZ is hosted by Zach Winter and Mark Adair Rios, co-founders of Prosperity CRE, a commercial real estate investment firm committed to providing its investors with ongoing cash flow and building long-term wealth. If you like the podcast, please give us a positive rating and subscribe to be notified about future content. Also, if you'd like to learn more about our approach to real estate investing, you can download a free copy of our real estate investment book, Investing for Cash Flow and Long-Term Wealth, by clicking the link in the show notes below. Thank you, and stay tuned for our upcoming episodes.